sanctuary I will sacrifice. Ooh, there's nothing as lovely as you in the morning light.
Gentlemen, I'm here today in beautiful Paradise Valley, Arizona, at the incredible Mountain Shadows Resort, which is, it's just at the base of Camelback Mountain. It's such an amazing place to visit while you're here. And I have the good fortune, and I'm completely humbled that I get to interview one of the owners and the gentleman that created this masterpiece of a property. He has been super influential in in HIStinguished. I get asked the question, where did the idea for HIStinguished come from? And when I think back, a lot of it has to do with this gentleman that we're going to meet today. Always well-dressed, the epitome of a refined gentleman, super successful, incredibly humble, and this man treats everyone across the board the same exact way. No matter what you do, where you're from, he treats you with the most amazing energy, utmost respect, and always has a smile on his face. And I remember looking at him one day and saying, I want to be like you one day. I'm going to do business with you one day. And there's more to the story, but I want you guys to come on that journey with me. So let's take a walk. Gentlemen, Nick D here with HIStinguished. I am here with, quite frankly, one of the kindest, most humble, refined gentlemen I've ever had the opportunity to meet and know. And I know that he won't speak on his accolades. He's not that type of gentleman, so allow me to do that for him. You have created, built, owned and operated some of the world's finest resorts and spas, catered to everyone from the leisure traveler to celebrities to royalty. You have, and I'm saying this because I know this, if you go around this town, we're in Paradise Valley right now, by the way, at one of your amazing properties, Mountain Shadows.
Thanks, Nick.
And if you go anywhere and someone has met you, the first words out of their mouth are, I love that man. The nicest man I've ever met, and it's so true. Gentlemen, I'm here with Mr. Bill Nasikas, and we have known each other for about 15, 16 years, and
exactly.
I'm going to share that story later. But for myself, and what we're going to portray to everyone, the gentlemen who are either refined or looking to be more refined, you are the epitome of the refined gentleman to me across the board. From your mannerisms, your etiquette, your style, your grace, your successes, your knowledge, your travel, you name it, you have been a huge inspiration to me for many years, and quite frankly, probably one of the main reasons I've become the man I am, whether you know it or not. And that's one of the reasons we're here today, because I want to say thank you, and I wanted to sit down with you. And can you just tell us who Bill is?
Well, Bill's a pretty simple guy at the end of the day. I'm a real believer in this life. Less is more. And if you, how should I say, approach each day as yourself, and whether it's your business or your, call it social life, never try to go beyond yourself. You'll always be more comfortable in your ability to communicate and connect with people. And certainly in the business world, where there's potentially a little bit of what I call competitive spirit. Yeah. I always see those that try a little too hard, kind of fumbling the ball. So with that in mind, that's Bill. He's a simple guy who had the privilege of being raised in a hotel family. My dad was in the business, and
San Francisco. Right?
San Francisco was a property he built. Actually, it was an old apartment building that he renovated back in the 70s and moved us from New Orleans, where I grew up. He had 2 hotels there in the French Quarter. So I had the benefit of a lot of what I'll call osmosis in life, meaning just being around hospitality. I guess the word itself connotes kindness, friendship, the willingness to help others. So the core principle of our business is people taking care of people. And at the end of the day, that was my dad. I got to see that. We lived in a hotel in New Orleans for a time. And I remember even when I was only 6 years old, if I was ever in the public space of the hotel, now this is some years back in the 60s, mind you, you needed to wear a jacket and tie. So
Even at 6 years old?
even at 6 years old, because my father's premise was you can't ask people who work for you to do less than what you would do, and he considered me, even at 6, as an extension of his family, obviously. So when I was out in the public area, he made sure I had a jacket and tie on.
I don't even think you realize how many lessons you just taught in that opening statement. There's so many lessons to be taught there, gentlemen. And you beat me to the punch. My next question was going to be, where did you get your start? But that's where you got your start.
You know, it really, I have to suggest it was from a family-oriented relationship with hospitality. And then I had the benefit of going off to college, like a lot of us do in this world. And to be honest with you, my first year, I decided to stay in New Orleans because New Orleans was such a comfortable environment. We had effectively grown up there. And I realized halfway through my freshman year that I needed to get into a program that was going to prepare me for a professional world. And the only professional world I was familiar with was the hotel business, the hospitality business. So I transferred up to a school in upstate New York, Cornell University, which is known for its program.
Hospitality program?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great hospitality program.
So, you know, you spend time there immersed in the world of hotel from an academic perspective. And when I graduated, my father said, if you really want to learn the business, you should move to Europe and basically get yourself involved in the hotel business there. And after you've experienced the European culture of hospitality, come back to the US, and I promise you, you will have gained in experience just by doing that. So I was fortunate. I moved to Switzerland in 1976 and spent 3 years there. Hardly spoke the language. It was in the Swiss-speaking state of, or they call them canton, but it was in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And I ended up working in various restaurants and hotels. And again, you know, experience is the best teacher. So that was my way of gaining what I would call some of the specialties of delivering hospitality was over in Europe.
That makes sense, because with what you do and how you do within your properties, the attention to detail
Thanks.
is impeccable. I've taken, I've lived in the Valley for many years. Even now I'm in Las Vegas full time, but I'm here part time. And even when I come back, the last time I visited, I stayed at your other property, the Valley Hill.
Oh, sure.
The attention to detail, the design, how happy your employees are to work here and for you says so much. You have an uncanny knack at finding talent. That's your forte. You have this ability to find the best people in each space and then have them come work for you. How do you do that? What is it that you see in someone, or what is it that your natural instinct, what is it you first view and see that attracts you to someone's abilities, even when they don't see it themselves?
That's a great question, Nick. You know, for me, the opportunity to experience, call it a business, where this individual works tells me a lot about what kind of culture they'll bring to the table. And you mentioned that the uncanny knack for finding talent is, to me, it's all about, again, I had the experience of learning a spirit of hospitality that I think was unique. And so with that, we learn from the people we associate with. So I often will connect and network in the community with those that I know, that I respect. And when they say, oh, I've got a guy or a gal that's going to be just perfect for the position you're looking for, I will then take an opportunity to kind of go behind the scenes and investigate the work environment where they are, just like I did at Binkley's with you.
So what Bill's referring to, and I was going to save this to the
Okay,
end,
well,
but now I'm not. I was an entrepreneur and a business owner at a very, very young age, as a late teen into my 20s, and had lost everything. Arrogance, ego, no mentors, just believing I knew it all, thinking it would never end, and then guess what? It ended. And I moved across the country. I came from Philadelphia to Arizona.
Right.
Fresh new start. And while attempting to build business during the day, work your job, build your fortune, work your job, build your fortune. I was trying to start business during the day, but I was working at night as a bartender.
Yeah.
At the restaurant he just mentioned. It was a very well-known, high-end, very exclusive place to be in. And that's where we originally met.
Yes.
You would come in, usually with some business associates, and sit at the bar.
Yeah, my favorite place.
Order Bond by Harlan Estates wine.
You remember that?
Which is look it up if you don't know what it is. It's an amazing wine, and you used to always say, get yourself a glass and pour yourself one.
You've got to learn what you're pouring.
That's the man that you are. You are just so gracious. But I want to, if I may, because I really want to make this about you, but I need to tell a story that pertains to you. I remember, because I used to always get excited, if you will, and nervous when you come in. Because
you didn't look nervous.
It was one of those, you were always well put together, well spoken, very admired. You knew what you were talking about, from wine to food to clothes to travel. I picked up so many tips from you.
Wow.
And I remember, I don't know if you recall, you were walking out one day, and I came over and I shook your hand and I said, Bill, you inspire me to want to be more and do more. One day I'm going to do business with you. That's what I said.
Okay. That's
and this gentleman looked at a bartender.
Yeah.
That's no different, right? Because you never knew who you were going to work with or for.
Sure.
But you shook my hand, you put your hand on my shoulder, and you said, I look forward to that day.
That's right.
And 15 years later, last year, we did business together.
Yeah,
we didn't quite get the deal done, but we did business.
It was great.
And I remember we were talking, and you looked at me and you said, I always knew this day would come.
That's right.
We were kind of having a conversation about it. And that's the type of gentleman I'm sitting with. You are the type of gentleman that I have aspired to be. I still aspire to be. You've been a great inspiration, and we'll call it, because we call third-party management, third-party mentor, right? So without even realizing it, I've always looked up to you, and that's, believe it or not, one of the reasons we're sitting here today with you and everyone viewing.
Wow.
HIStinguished has actually been formed and started primarily because of my inspiration from you.
Wow.
And I want to point out that you never know when you might change someone's life by saying one thing, shaking their hand and giving inspiration. I was really, really going through a tough time then, and you believed in me or saw the talent in me more than I believed in myself at that time.
Wow.
And your words were such an inspiration that, guess what? It took 15 years, but we did it.
We did it. We did it.
It took 15 years, and now it's going to lead me to my next topic.
Sure.
The long game versus the short game. Right?
Yeah, well.
Because so many people, and I know there's a lot of young men who watch, and they might see me and see you and be like, that's so far past gradient.
Mm.
How do I don't even know how I want to be at that point, but how do I get there? Because they want it right now.
Yeah, well, that's our
What
culture.
is your
That's our-
recommendation?
Mhm.
Can you touch on, I mean, you have decades and decades of experience, expertise, success. What has been the key or the top 3 keys? What are the top 3 pieces of advice you can give the younger generation that are focused on the short game? How do you get them to focus on the long game?
Yeah, well, you really you hit on an important component to today's discussion for sure. And I've always believed, first and foremost, that, and I mentioned this earlier, that experience is the best teacher. And experience means you've got to be patient. You've got to be a sponge as it relates to what you're, I guess, picking up from the environment you're working in. But you also have to walk in the shoes of others, which means that in this business, I'll just, by way of example, some of my first jobs were what I would call hands-on jobs in the kitchen, in the dining room. I was a kind of a restaurant aficionado, so I figured I'd better learn how to wait on tables, how to prepare food, if I someday aspired to manage a restaurant or a hotel. So I think that's number one, is learning from experience, and certainly during that time you pick up a ton of knowledge, but it takes patience. Hence getting back to your comment about the long game, if you will. There's a lot of quarters in life, more than a football game for sure. And second is, to me, is and you kind of hit on this at the beginning, Nick, and I was fortunate that I've been treated well by others, but it's really comes down to that saying about treat others the way you want to be treated. And everything from integrity, to just basic good manners, to showing an interest in others. I often hear that saying too about it's better to listen than to be heard, because I think that's how you absorb knowledge. Some of us get a little over anxious to talk about what we believe in, and when you do that, you kind of disrupt the opportunities of listening or learning from others. And then I guess last is that, what do they say too? Something about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I know those are somewhat trite in their reference points, but it truly is, to me, it's a marathon, and you just don't want to burn out early by over kind of finding what I call intermediate successes, because those are just stepping stones to what ultimately will be your grand success. And I've been fortunate, I guess years do pile on, and but I've been in the business for over 45 years now, the hospitality business, and it doesn't matter, hospitality or other businesses, I think they all harken back to starting with experience and learning from that.
Yeah, well, and cliche cliche sayings are cliche for a reason.
Right.
Number one of the things that I like to point out to people is that you never know who you're going to work with or for. Just be nice to everybody.
Yep.
And another key, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, and I love to tell a lot of young men come up to me and they say, this isn't what I want to do. I'm doing this and it's not what I want to do. I don't like what I do. I hate what I do. I want to be this and I want to be that and I want to do this. Listen, I don't care if you're working as a bartender, cleaning toilets, valeting cars. I don't care if you're running a company that you don't like running, or you're the top salesperson, you don't like it. It may not be what you want to do or who you are or where you're going to be, but it's what you're doing today.
Right.
So be the best at it today.
Yeah. Well
Because
said.
it represents yourself today.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be a bartender, be the best bartender today.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be a valet guy, be the best valet guy or girl today. If you're going to run a sales team, be the best at it today. because it represents you today, and you never know when you're going to shake the hand of a Bill Nasickas that sees that talent and wants to bring you one of his properties.
Right.
Your employees, so my team behind the cameras, they've been excited to meet you. They've heard, they've known that we were going to meet, and they've heard, and they listen to me ask employees of yours, can you describe Bill Nasickas in one sentence?
Is that right?
And they'll tell you, I mean, granted, you're employees, but even at the event we were at last night,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was saying I'm interviewing someone tomorrow, kind, gentle, and this one woman goes, can I take a guess on who it is? Of all the people in this entire state, she said your name.
No way.
Based on the description of the person I said. That says a lot about you.
Well,
How do you keep, other than obviously the man you are, what is your key to keeping talent at all of your properties for years in a time when people jump from position to position, job to job? Your people will stay with you for years. Why is that?
My premise, and again, as you suggested, maybe asking them why is another alternative. But my premise is you've got to give those that you've, how should I say, allowed to take on responsibility to make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, you don't, as they say, beat them up over it. You try to offer some advice or constructive commentary that just gives them some insight as to how they might do it differently next time if we deem it was a mistake. So giving people the latitude to, I mean, you met one of the general managers who runs Mountain Shadows, and he's been with us for close to 20 years now and worked his way up. But I think he would say that he gets a lot of elbow room to run his hotel. He doesn't have me micromanaging the situation. So that to me is really the premise upon which people want to stay with you, is you give them opportunities to grow, a chance to make mistakes, and to learn, and from that come successes that they can leverage off of for their future.
You said earlier, experience is the best teacher.
Right.
You, essentially, in so many words, you empower your staff in so many ways. You empower them.
That's a great word.
You empower them.
Yeah, empowerment.
May I say, you empower them to fail so
Yeah,
that they
well,
may
that's-
become better.
Right.
You give them the ability to go make a mistake so that they can learn, and you can. You're so experienced, you can go, that's okay.
It's okay.
I'm glad you learned.
Yeah.
What did you learn here?
Yeah. Well, I often we kind of kick around the, fortunately, I'm not a brain surgeon, if you will, so making mistakes in the operating room may not be as forgiving, but I've always looked at a hotel is only as good as today, literally, and that means if we made 10 mistakes yesterday, let's not make them again, and let's forge out there, and we've got new guests joining us and opportunities to show what we learned from yesterday. So that's something that is a benefit of this business, is you can make a mistake and it doesn't necessarily endanger your guest. It's usually something that is often you're able to fix and move on to the next day. So
We walked in the front door. There was a gentleman walking up to the counter, the front desk.
This morning,
Not the counter, front desk
6:30.
this morning.
Yeah.
What was a little later? We were here
Okay.
at 6:30 sunrise to get some footage.
Right.
But there was a gentleman walked up, said, "I'm just checking out from Australia." You can tell by the accent.
Oh yeah.
And she said, "Great, how was your stay?" He said, "This is my favorite place to stay in the entire United States."
He said that.
And I looked at my team and I went, you know how bold of a statement that is for a world traveler to
Wow,
make?
that
And I
is-
said, and that's because of the ownership group and what you and your team and your partners have put into the years and decades of what you're doing. So one big question I have is, you and your team have been very good at taking struggles and turning them into success over the years.
Uh-huh.
What is your key to doing that?
It's, I guess, first and foremost, not to be afraid of a struggle. A lot of people will retreat when, as they say, it gets a little too hot in the kitchen. They exit stage left. It's really to take on challenge and struggles, as you say, head on, and look at it more as an opportunity. You know, that's again a little bit of a cliche, but you know, people often kind of want to shroud the term challenge, or those are opportunities, but they really are, and it's fun. I mean, the most gratification that I've had, especially when I worked as a general manager years ago at the Boulders up in Carefree, near where you practice your art of barkeeping. I remember having the most fun with guests that were just flat out upset and something had just not gone their way. And so often those things that didn't go their way really weren't our fault, but I took it to heart and showed compassion, apologized. First you want to acknowledge, apologize, and then act on the issue. So so often I see people kind of going, well, this guy's crazy. Let's not get out of control. And then you end up in a situation where you're not going to have a guest that's going to return to you if you don't genuinely try to fix the problem or the struggle. So it's all about opportunities at the end of the day, and take them as they come, day in and day out.
What gives you, how do you continue and keep your drive and passion on every day?
You know, that's a great question. As you get on in your career, you sometimes find yourself looking for new deals, if you will, and it's, for me, again, getting back to the hotel business tends to be one that always offers challenges. Anytime I walk in to the property, I kind of glob on to the energy from my staff. That's why I don't spend much time in the office, or guests for that matter. So if I find myself getting a little lethargic, I mean, I just get back out there on the floor, and then always keeping opportunity in mind. You're in the business of finding hotel assets and finding buyers for them. We worked together on one a few years back, and it's always fun to look at a new property. So that's another way that I continue to keep my my mind fresh, if you will, is to look at other opportunities when they come up.
You touched on something, and that's the reason I asked that question. Mm-hmm. Is because, you know, my main business for years has been in the hotel space, commercial real estate, of selling hotels.
Yeah.
The most stressful business I have ever been in my life.
I bet. Yeah.
People think it sounds sexy.
Right.
You know, they see the big deals, or they see, you know, they'll see the suit or the watch. They think it's sexy until they're in the fire.
Right.
And I asked you that because you're on the side I'm on, the acquisition and disposition side, but you're also on the owner operating.
Right.
You're on all aspects, and in such a treacherous, if you will, like a deep trenches sometimes of just blazing guns everywhere. That was what the main question was: how do you keep your passion? How do you keep your focus? And how do you turn struggles into successes in such a crazy world and high demand? You deal with some of the world's most elite clientele, the most discerning clientele. I can only imagine the requests that you've had. How do you stay level in all of that?
Well, I know that if you're not level, you're not going to be successful. And I think when you use the term level, it's having a sense of mind that allows you to stay focused on issues, on problems, without getting excited or upset, and taking the time out of your day to effectively come up with solutions. So I deal in the world of solutions, and it's fun to come up with solutions. Maybe they're one alternative over another, and then you bounce them off your associates and the people you're working with. But believe that that's the way you gotta, create the response, is by running through solutions and making sure that you're not so fixated on the problem that you're only seeing the negative side of it.
Couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna kind of shift over to the refined gentleman.
Okay.
And you and we could have this conversation for a long time because you're so well versed in hospitality, wine, dining, etiquette, style, clothing, watches, vehicles. I mean, we could go down the list. When did you transition? Do you believe that you transitioned from a man to a refined gentleman? When do there's a day you drink this wine and eat at this restaurant and understand this, but then there's a day
Right.
where you know what Bond by Harlan Estates is, or some of the Bordeaux that we just saw on my phone that we have at HIStinguished,
Right.
80 Bordeaux that most people don't even know what a Bordeaux is. Right? But that's another lesson that's coming. Stay tuned.
Yes.
I'm going to teach you the 5 grapes in a Bordeaux. But when did you transition from a businessman or a man to that refined gentleman?
Are you speaking chronologically, or?
When did you
Well-
when do you feel like you noticed a shift, and how did you what did it take to get there? What were you around, or what did you do to continuously educate yourself or refine yourself to get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, all the sense in the world. For me, and I brought this up earlier, I had the opportunity to pack up and go experience another culture, and this happened to be in Europe, in the country of Switzerland. To me, the biggest challenge of that transition was the language, and I was not fluent in the language of French, the French language, which was basically the basis of which I was going to succeed. I mean, you got to communicate, and a lot of people understand English. But when I embarrassed myself to the point of learning the language and not being afraid to, we talked about making mistakes. I mean, it was so funny when I would try to communicate with a shopkeeper, or even in kitchens that I worked at, people often wanted to just revert to speaking, even though they couldn't speak good English. They wanted to revert to that, and I did my best to keep them on track. But I think when I came to the conclusion that I could communicate in a language that wasn't my native language, and at the same time experience another culture for what that culture was or is, was when I kind of stepped up to the next level. And it gave me confidence as well.
Keyword, confidence.
And the confidence that you gain from kind of embarrassing yourself along the way, and then finding a day when you immerse into what I would call another culture. So that's when I was in my early 20s over in Switzerland, and I could have packed up and come back to the US, which I thought about a few times, but I was able to kind of get over that hump and to the top of the mountain of living another culture in a way that I could understand it and take advantage of it.
So, it's funny because there's another culture, which another country,
Right.
another language. There's also another culture
Yeah.
in terms of how you present yourself.
Yeah.
Even the words you use could be determined as another language. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. Yeah.
For the young men. And you said some amazing things that are, and I'm going to recap on those. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how you learn.
Yep.
It's okay to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
That's how you grow.
Absolutely.
Be kind to everybody. Show kindness, because you never know who's in the room. Touching on all your points.
Yeah. No.
Stop me at any time.
You're right
or
there.
add at any time.
You're right there.
Take note. Make sure you're taking notes. The worst notes are better than the best memory.
That's right.
Or just hit rewind.
I get it.
We had some. There's a few others. We touched on a ton of this. Stay level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay level.
Maintain.
Which I learned, sit with your emotions, but stay level, because if you don't, you're not going to make it out.
Right. Right.
Which ones am I missing? What are some of the 2 or 3 more key points? I know we talked about, you said so many wonderful things, and I'm trying to touch on them. Empower others.
Yeah, empowering others.
Empowering others is
letting
huge.
them make mistakes without necessarily
Fear of backlash.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, tell them that, give them the confidence that they can step up and learn from that mistake. Is so important.
When you give someone the power, when you entrust someone with your baby, right? With your life's work, with your creation, with anything in your world, when you give somebody that type of empowerment, that you have no idea what that does to them, but when you do that, you have to have the responsibility to understand that they may not succeed in the way you would have succeeded, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
And it's kind of making sense now. That's how you have developed such success around such talented people.
Well,
because even if they didn't possess the level of talent they believed,
right.
which is the next point, one of the final points, you see the talent in them that they don't see, and that's why you push them to get there, to learn those mistakes, because you know you're watching them from here, they're watching from here, but eventually they get here.
Absolutely.
And that is huge.
Yeah.
So with all of those points and all of those and all of that recap, number one advice that you can give to any, whether it's a young man or a man that's 40 years old starting over in his life, what's the one crucial key piece of advice from Bill Nasickas to that person? If they came to you and said, Bill, can I just have one piece of advice to move forward, what would it be?
I always come back to square one, and that's to effectively take the opportunity to listen and learn from others. You know, I like the term too, there's no new ideas, if you will, out there. There's only ways of reinventing old ones. And so there's so much to take advantage of by virtue of who you listen to. And I'm always, you know, even at my age, I'm still looking and learning from others. So that would be, to me, never stop learning, and always, you know, have the thirst to discover and conquer new opportunities along the way. I truly believe that is what keeps us getting up out of bed in the morning.
It's an amazing piece of advice. Kaizen.
So,
The art
Kaizen.
The art of never-ending self-improvement.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I don't think a lot of the young men understand that men that have reached so much experience at my level, your level, and even beyond, continue to do whatever they can to get better. They read, they go to seminars, they sit with a group of people who are doing more, who are doing, and learn and bounce ideas off of each other. So that recap, that number one piece of advice is huge for everybody listening, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Nick.
I want to thank you, graciously thank you. I do want to say one thing before we finish. I never prepare for these. My team knows. I just do it. I just go. Right? I want to go from here. I want to be the real me, and if I mess up, I mess up, because I want people to know it's okay to mess up.
Yeah.
This was the first and only sit down, interview, talk with anyone that I actually was nervous about.
Well, you didn't look
I don't really get nervous.
It's not bad to be nervous.
And I say that because I want people to know that I may seem and appear refined at all times. I'm not. I was nervous. I sat down with my team. We did a lot of B-roll here, and we went to a coffee shop, and I sat down and I went through notes and questions, and they looked like ants dancing around on my screen. Before we started, I told them I need 10 minutes to meditate. Think about it. I've never done that.
Wow.
You were the only gentleman I did that with, and it's because there's multiple reasons, but I want people to know it's okay to be nervous.
It's good to be
okay
nervous. Yeah, it's good to be nervous.
to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Right? And if I would have messed up today, okay, great. And if I didn't, then great. But I want everyone to know that you've been such an inspiration to me. I wanted to share my passion, your passion with them.
Thank you.
And let them know that if someone shakes your hand that you admire and respect, stay in touch with that person. Ask them the right questions. Ask for advice. But if you ask for it, take it. Apply it. And guess what? It may take you 15 years to do a deal or do business with that person, but it's better than never doing it at all.
Well said, Nick.
Thank you so much. May
Thank you.
I plug the properties?
You can plug whatever you'd like.
So Valley Ho, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yep.
Mountain Shadows, Paradise Valley, Arizona. And Sanctuary, one of the most extraordinary places as well. It's
Thank
right
you.
behind us,
Right.
the base of Camelback Mountain here in Paradise Valley as well. Come here and experience the flawless grounds, staff, food, drinks, spa, and everything that this man and his team have created. Tell them that HIStinguished sent you. And I appreciate you. I appreciate
Nick.
you, and I appreciate my team. Thank you for everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Nick D with HIStinguished.